Welcome to the Understand the KJV podcast, where each week for the past 3 years we've been studying the book of Psalms, looking at a different psalm each week, but not in the correct order. Well, for me, Keith Simons, as a Bible teacher, that plan has advantages and disadvantages. The main advantage of not studying the Psalms in order is that I've been able week by week to select the psalm which I feel will be most appropriate for you, the psalm which I think you will learn most from on the basis of those which we've studied in the recent past, or perhaps a psalm which is appropriate to what's going on in the world at the moment. That's the advantage, but what about the disadvantage of that method? Well, the disadvantage is that the psalms are in an order, and they're in that order for a reason. We see how psalms are grouped together in very clear and distinct groups, and sometimes we see why one psalm appears in a particular order after the psalm which goes before it. All of this is deliberate, it's planned, and although we don't understand all the reasons why the psalms are exactly in this order, we understand enough of them to realise that there is truly a correct order to the psalms. The reason why I explain this is that for today's psalm, Psalm 120, its position in the book of Psalms is extremely important in understanding its meaning. Its heading in the King James Bible is A Song of Degrees. And if you check through your copy of the book of Psalms, you will find that heading is given to that psalm and to the 15 psalms which it begins with, and no other psalms at all in the entire book of Psalms have the title A Song of Degrees. So what we're looking at here is a little book of Psalms in the middle, as it were, of the book of Psalms as a whole. A book of 15 psalms, each of them headed A Song of Degrees. And when you read them, not individually, but as a group, you see that they're telling a story. In Psalm 120, the author is far away from Israel. He mentions 2 foreign countries there. Psalm 120 verse 5, they are Meshech and Kedar. Then by the time we reach Psalm 122, people are saying to him, verse 1, let us go into the house of the Lord. And he's travelling to Jerusalem. He sees Mount Zion, the city where the temple is built, in Psalm 125, verse 1, where he declares, they that trust in the Lord shall be as Mount Zion. And so he continues on this journey in the direction towards God's house, the temple. By the time we reach Psalm 134, the last in the series, we've got the blessing of the priests in the house of God. Behold, bless ye the Lord, all ye servants of the Lord, which by night stand in the house of the Lord. So we've got a journey there, a journey all the way from a foreign country to the temple of God in Jerusalem and to the place where the priests are blessing the congregation. So there is an order to the book of Psalms, and right at the head of this little section, the Songs of Degree, we find Psalm 120. Let me introduce myself as I always do before we look at this psalm verse by verse and word by word. My name, as I've said, is Keith Simons. I'm a Bible teacher from England. I present these talks, and so far we've done, I think, all but 7 of the Psalms, and those last 7 we're going to be looking at, I trust, in the next few weeks. So today we're looking verse by verse and word by word at Psalm 120. So what is this heading we see at the top of all of these? A song of degrees. Well, a degree means an upward step. People sometimes interpret this as the songs of ascent. It's very appropriate to the idea of a journey to the temple, because the temple was situated on the top of a hill, and the journey which a lot of the people took from Jericho by the Dead Sea, having gone down the River Jordan, the course of the River Jordan, to reach Jericho and then crossing into the hills, that was 2 days of climbing upwards until you reached Jerusalem and its temple. So people were very aware on that journey of upward steps. And just as they were physically rising from the depths of the low valley where Jericho is, up to the mountain, or rather the hill where God's house, the temple, stood, we think they used to sing these songs, the songs of degrees, songs to prepare themselves for entering into worship. Verse 1, In my distress I cried unto the Lord, and he heard me. I cried unto the Lord. We're about to hear his prayer in the present situation. Some people think this verse is a testimony. It's saying, God's answered my prayers in the past, and so I'm going to pray to him again. And other people see it as the answer to the prayer which follows, that the author is declaring that he called out to God and he trusts God to answer his prayer. So we better see what the prayer is. Verse 2, Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. Deliver, rescue, save me, God. Don't just save my body from the dangers that there are for me, with my enemies round about me and people trying to cause trouble for me, but save my soul. Soul could mean my life, but it means in particular the inner life, his relationship with God. He's in such danger with these lying people, evil people with their evil schemes, that he thinks he might be tempted away from God and from a right relationship with God. So he prays to God to deliver his life and to deliver his soul, to rescue him from the great danger of lying lips and deceitful tongue. What he means is that the people who live around him are liars and deceivers, and they're using their words constantly to try to trap him into danger, into wrong and evil deeds, into trouble. They're telling lies against him to cause problems for him, to cause distress. Verse 1. And so the author of the psalm thinks about this. He thinks about the lying lips and the deceitful tongues of his enemies. And he speaks as if he's speaking to those enemies. Verse 3, What shall be given unto thee, or what shall be done unto thee, thou false tongue? He could be asking one of 2 things here. He could be asking, what reward are you trying to get? What are you trying to gain by these false words? Or he could be asking, what's going to be the punishment for these false words? What is the punishment that God will give for this deceit, for this evil thing that you are doing? And then he replies in verse 4, and he replies both with what the tongue achieves by its false words and with what God will do as the punishment. The two are the same. Verse 4, sharp arrows of the mighty with coals of juniper. That's a reward and that's a punishment. What do I mean? I mean that these evil people are punished in the same way that they try to cause trouble for other people. Let's take apart that description. Arrows. Arrows were like bullets in today's terms. You never knew when suddenly and unexpectedly an arrow could hit you and injure you or kill you. How much worse when those arrows were shot by the mighty, by a strong soldier. An arrow is going to hurt you, but if it is shot at full force and with the full power of a mighty, strong man, it's going to cause a much greater injury. And the arrows are worse still because they are sharp. They cut right into you. So if this is the reward that these evil people are trying to get by their cruelty, well, sharp arrows of the mighty is a description of just how suddenly their words can come and hurt you. Isn't that true? When people say things against you, their words come suddenly, unexpectedly, and how deeply they hurt you. Okay, so that's one thing that these evil words, these false words, can achieve. What's the other thing? With coals of juniper. Juniper is a bush. We think it's a sort of broom tree. And the coals of it means when you take the wood and you dry it out and you burn it in a fire. And we think what's meant is that this sort of wood would burn slowly and intensely. Okay, let's think of what these evil words are achieving. That what they're doing is they don't just have that sudden effect like an arrow which hurts you, but they burn. They burn within you. Has anyone ever said anything to you that has really disturbed and upset you? And you felt like you've got a fire burning within you. The injury, the pain that these words have caused. The words came very suddenly, very quickly. You weren't expecting them. They came like arrows, but they burnt like a slow fire within you. For days, for weeks, for months, you struggled with the memory of what was said so cruelly against you. That's what evil words, lying words, achieve. But I said also that this described the punishment for these false words. Let's look at verse 4 again and think of it in terms of the punishment for evil people who have chosen on purpose to speak false words and who refuse to turn from that lying, that evil nature. What's their punishment? Sharp arrows of the mighty with coals of juniper. Yes, when God acts against them, and when God acts against them in power, it's like sharp arrows shot by a mighty warrior. Suddenly, they are struck down. Suddenly, unexpectedly, maybe they die. And they find themselves in hell. And don't we speak about hellfire? Like slowly burning coals which constantly cause pain. How terrible. How terrible to give yourself over to lies and to false words and trying to trap and deceive the innocent person. God's anger against you is certain unless you turn from those evil ways, unless you repent and turn back to God. And with the thought of the punishment of those evil people, then the author of this psalm begins to fear for himself. Verse 5, woe is me, that I sojourn in Meshech, that I dwell in the tents of Kedar. What's gone wrong for him then? Well, what's gone wrong is that he is one of Israel's people. He is supposed to be dwelling in Israel, the promised land. What's taken him to Meshech or to Kedar? If you look at an ancient map of Israel, you'll find that no one dwelt in Meshech and in Kedar at the same time. Meshech is to the north of Israel, Kedar to the south. And what probably this is describing is how in the more remote areas, some of the nations gave up on normal ways of making money. They gave up on agriculture, on farming, on trade, on industry, because it became much easier for them to get what they needed by robbery, by deceit, by stealing. And it seems that the people of Meshech and the people of Kedar were bandits. They robbed people. Maybe they attacked towns and villages to destroy them and to steal from the inhabitants. Or maybe they stole from travellers as they passed through their territories. The author says he's sojourning or living in Meshech, and that he's dwelling in the tents of Kedar. And by this he shows that he, as one of Israel's people, has gone to live with one of these evil tribes. Why has he done that? Well, it may be that he was taken hostage by them. They kidnapped people and demanded money for their return and treated them as slaves if they didn't get that money. Maybe that's why he was sojourning in Meshech or dwelling in Kedar. But maybe it was by his own choice that he ended up there. Maybe he thought it safer to be there in a time of famine, as we read about the family in the book of Ruth. Or maybe he was trying to make profit for himself. Maybe he thought that if he lived among these robbers, he could trade with them and he could gain valuable things for himself. But whatever it was, whatever the reason for him to live in these places, he'd wandered away from the promised land. He'd wandered away from the place where God wanted his people to be. He'd gone away, and now, by his choice, or maybe forced, he's having to live in foreign nations, in dangerous nations, making his living place in Kedar, or amongst the nomads, in Meshech, or amongst the nomads, the tent dwellers in Kedar. And this is terrible. This is terrible because these people are evil. But this is also terrible because he's so far away from God's house, the temple. Remember, this is the Songs of Degrees. This is the story of how he left that place to go to worship God at the temple in Jerusalem, in the heart of the promised land Israel. And so for too long he declares, verse 6, my soul hath long dwelt with him that hateth peace. I've had enough of this. I've had enough of living with these violent and cruel people. They are liars. They are deceivers. If I remain here, they will either take my life away or else they'll convince me to behave in an evil way like them. It's desperate. My need to go to God's house, the temple. My need to pray with the people of God. I've lived for so long with these evil people. Verse 7, I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war. I've tried so hard in this foreign country to do what is right and good, to live in the way that I should live, to be peaceful, to succeed and to prosper in a place where I cannot prosper. Because when I speak, they are for war. Whatever I say, however good my words, however sincere my actions, these people around me are determined to do evil things, to cause trouble, to cause disaster for others. And so the time's come that I must separate myself, that I must leave this evil nation and go to be in the place where God has called me to be among the people of God and to worship God. In today's times, God does have his people, his Christian people, living among evil people. And evil people live all around them. It's not to a physical temple that God's people, the Christians, go, but when they turn to God in prayer, when they seek God, when they worship God, when they draw near to God, they separate themselves from the evil people round about them, and they receive the refreshing, the renewing, the strengthening that God gives them to live for him in this world. Please write to me. My email address 333kjv@gmail.com. My name again, Keith Simons. I'd like to know where in the world you are, if you're in America, which state, and I'd also like to know whether this is the first talk you've heard or whether you've listened to a number of these talks. That email address again, 333kjv@gmail.com. And now here is the whole of Psalm 120. A Song of Degrees. In my distress I cried unto the Lord, and he heard me. Deliver my soul, O Lord, from lying lips and from a deceitful tongue. What shall be given unto thee, or what shall be done unto thee, thou false tongue? Sharp arrows of the mighty, with coals of juniper. Woe is me, that I sojourn in Mesech, that I dwell in the tents of Kedar. My soul hath long dwelt with him that hateth peace. I am for peace, but when I speak, they are for war.